Weirding Way Media.
Hello and welcome back to the Filmumentaries podcast. I'm Jamie Benning, host, chief jabberer, and man who keeps this thing on the road. And every couple of weeks I have a conversation with one of the behind-the-scenes artists whose work you've probably been admiring for years without ever actually knowing their name. We're talking production designers, editors, composers, digital artists, puppeteers, model makers, and everyone in between. And on today's episode, I'm joined by creature effects artist, puppeteer, digital pioneer, educator, Craig Caton-Largent, who's one of the 8 co-founders of Digital Domain and is currently creative director at the 3D animation and visual effects department at the New York Film Academy in Burbank. Craig has spent more than 4 decades helping bring some of cinema's most memorable creatures and characters to life. After being mentored as a teenager by the legendary Dick Smith, he went on to contribute to films like Metal Storm, Cocoon, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Ghostbusters, Predator, The Stuff, Tremors, Jurassic Park, Interview with a Vampire, and even a stint in animation, Tangled, Rise of the Guardians, How to Train Your Dragon 2. So in this conversation we talk about how watching Planet of the Apes at the age of 7 set him on a path with correspondence with Dick Smith that ultimately led him into Hollywood. He ended up sculpting Spock's first ever seamless silicone ears on the Voyage Home, and 20 years as the doctor to the original E.T. puppet. If you wonder what the hell I'm talking about, keep listening. We also talk about designing the Jurassic Park T-Rex around helicopter flight simulator technology, puppeteering the Velociraptors whilst using a famous frog's voice, the legendary kitchen porthole head tilt that earned him an on-set comment from Steven Spielberg, and how a flying logo on an Amiga computer led him to becoming one of the founding employees of Digital Domain, and his later move into final layout and virtual camera work at DreamWorks, alongside some big names there as well, including a mention for Guillermo del Toro. So sit back, enjoy the chat, and I'll be back at the end as usual for a bit more jabbering on. Well, Craig, I appreciate you being here. We finally got around to doing this. I often ask the question, well, no, I'm pleased to have you. But I often ask the question to people like, where did this sort of spark first originate in you to sort of pursue a creative life?
That's a super easy question. Back when I was a kid, it kind of started with Batman. My interest was the 1960s television show with Adam West, and I was just like enamored by that. But then when I was about 7 years old, the movie Planet of the Apes came out, and that was it. I saw, and I wanted to be a monkey, and so we had a magazine here in the United States called Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Yeah,
and through it you could get this magazine called Dick Smith's Monster Makeup Handbook.
Yeah,
You're probably familiar with that too. And so I got that, and I went out and started practicing doing Planet of the Apes. And by the time I was about 12 years old, I had like almost a perfect Planet of the Apes makeup, and it was so fun. And I just decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to come to Hollywood and make monsters. I was growing up in Washington State on a sheep and cattle ranch, and so I went out and I trimmed my horse's mane for the Planet of the Apes hair. So, but yeah, that's how it started. It was kind of like that, and then I went to college. promised my parents I would get like a job that would like support myself. So I went down the X-ray tech road, which was kind of actually fortunate because I learned a lot about human anatomy and how things move and stuff, just by like watching. And
Mm,
and, and then one day, I found a copy of Who's Who in America, which was this big book of names and addresses of famous
mm.
people. And and lo and behold, Dick Smith's name and address was in there. I was like, okay. And so I sent him a letter and some pictures, and then like a week later, I get a phone call, and it's Dick Smith. And at first, I thought it was one of my college roommates pranking me. But Dick, we made a deal. He said, like, write your questions down on paper and send me those questions along with a blank cassette tape and your pictures. And then and we corresponded for about a year, and I would do makeups and he would critique them and he would give me new techniques to try out. And at one point he said, I see no reason for you not to go to Hollywood. And so I came down there, and he provided me with introductions to Rick Baker and
Mm.
Scan Winston and Tom Burman.
Wow.
And then that's kind of how it all got rolling.
What year
So
was that?
that would have been 1980 or 81, I think, somewhere in there. So
Okay, so we've already hit the kind of revolution of the second wave of monster movies, if you like. Star Wars has come out, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Prior to that, you had the Ray Harryhausen, like Planet of the Apes, as well as you said. So there was now a demand for this stuff as well. So it sounds like you hit the timing just right.
It was perfect. We were entering what I guess now they're calling it the golden age of effects.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had like just before moving down here to California, I'd watched Alien, and that was like, that's it. I have to come down here and make monsters, and it was so inspiring, and yeah, so that's kind of how that all came about.
Was there any nervousness in writing to Dick Smith, or like just kind of, or did you just have this drive that, I'm going to give this a go? Was it a kind of, it's a
Yeah,
no-brainer?
there was really no nervousness, and actually I didn't I expected to hear back like 3 or 6 months later. I
Yeah.
was and a phone call was completely out of the question. So
Huh.
that was very surprising.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
and
Do you know, I interviewed another guy called Dave Barkley, who was
oh,
a
Dave
puppeteer.
Barkley. Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah, he was inspired in the same way, Planet of the Apes did it for him. He made his own masks, figured out how to do them, made short films with his friends, showed that to Stuart Freeborn, and that's what got him the job on The Empire Strikes
Oh,
Back.
Stuart
It's
Freeborn.
amazing.
What a
Yeah,
nah, he was one of my heroes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. His stuff was great. And wow, there was another guy, another British makeup artist that I just really thought his work was great. I can't remember his name right now, but
Mm.
he did the Elephant Man, and
Yeah. Who was
yeah,
that? I do know
that
that name. Yeah,
guy.
I'll
Yeah.
put that in. I'll insert a bit. So that British makeup artist was Christopher Tucker, and he designed the complex 15-piece appliance that transformed John Hurt into Joseph Merrick. Apparently, it took up to 12 hours a day to apply. But when you arrived in the industry, were you kind of surprised about how it felt being there? Because, what I've heard from some of the people that walked into the effects world is that just how kind of collaborative it was. And because obviously when you're learning to do this stuff, you're in your own garage or your own
Yeah.
garden or wherever you are, just doing stuff just for you. But then you get to the point where you're collaborating with people. How was that for you, like stepping into that world?
Well, actually, I'm going to give Dick Smith credit for that because he encouraged the sharing of ideas.
Mm.
There was secrecy going down everywhere. People were like, "Oh, I have my secret skin formula and all this stuff," right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then Dick came into the scene, and everybody wanted to learn his stuff, and he said, "Well, let's be sharing his techniques with everybody," and I think that led to plus that and the fact that like we would all like there would be a group of like 20 of us that did a lot of the work, right? And so we would go work at makeup effects labs on a show, and then we would disperse, and some of us would go to Stan's and over to Rick's, and so we were
Mm.
like this. That technology just kept flourishing outwards, and there were things like we came up with this interesting way to use stencils to do a couple of alien head makeups for Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
Yeah, right.
And then one of the guys, he went over to Stan Winston's, and then they used that technique to do all of the Alien Nation heads, so they had a consistent look with that template. So we just kind of
Right.
things just kind of like flowed through, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess there was enough work around by the sound of it. If you were flitting between different effects shops, there was a small knit group of you, ultimately, kind of a small world, small industry.
Yeah, I'd say they're about maybe I think they're like they're the mainstay. There's like maybe like 30 or 40 of us, but I think overall there's like probably maybe 150 people that were floating in and out. But
Mm.
you would see the same 20 or 30 people everywhere you went, yeah, and it was great because there were a lot of lifelong friendships that formed here.
Yeah, yeah.
So
When you go through things like that together, you can't help but kind of gel, can you? Because you're in these environments together. It's like, I was just talking to you before we recorded about my work with Formula One. I traveled the world with pretty much the same crew for some of them for 20 years, some of them for
oh
10, some of
wow,
them for
yeah,
5, but they become your brothers and sisters.
yep, they're
You go
family.
through that
Yeah.
same experience. Yeah. You see them more than family in some
Yeah, that's
instances as
true.
well.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
spend like 8+ hours a day with them.
Oh yeah. Oh, eight. I'd dream of eight, just 8 hours.
Yeah, right. It's trying to be
So what?
kind for the audience. Oh yeah,
Yes.
we'll
Yeah. Yeah.
come and do this stuff.
I did my first 19-hour day last year, which was crazy,
Oh wow.
utterly crazy. But when you arrived in the industry, then what was the first movie that you worked on, Craig?
It was a Charlie Band movie called Metal Storm: The Destruction of
Mm,
Jared-Syn, and
I've not
and
seen it.
it was in 3D. And I thought, that was my first movie, and I thought, and first, the 3D movies back then, man, it was like you needed like 10K lights to light the set to get enough light.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
thought I thought all movie sets were like that. And I like, wow, it's pretty whoa. But it was just the 3D sets. But yeah, it was Metal Storm, and it was kind of an interesting thing how when I came to Los Angeles, Metal Storm went on like a hiatus thing, right?
Mm,
And the makeup effects lab said, "Well, we don't have anything for you, but we're supposed to start up in about 2 weeks or so on the to finish this movie. And if you want, you can just hang out and organize and sweep the floor." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that."
sure.
And what happened was I swept the floor, and I completely reorganized the place to what I thought made more sense. Like all the mold equipment goes here, and all everything kind of got compartmentalized. And the funny thing happened, by the end of 2 weeks, I was the only person who knew where everything was.
Ha
and,
ha.
and
Well
kind
done.
of, I had a complete accident, but man, I tell everybody, go do it.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
you
Yeah, yeah,
become indisposable that way.
yeah, yeah. Sure.
So that's how it started, and like 2 weeks later, we went in and we did pickup pickup shots and insert shots for Metal Storm,
Hmm.
and then everything kind of took off after that. So
83 was a sort of 3D year, wasn't it? Because there was Jaws 3D that
sure.
year as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was that
So
movie just before that kind of set everything in motion called Coming at Ya.
yeah, yeah, of
Oh
course. Yeah,
man, that was
yeah.
that was that was hard to sit through.
Yeah, 3D has come and gone so many times, hasn't it? Just a few years
Yeah,
ago, again, like even in
yeah,
my part of the industry, we were doing 3D TV shows. It was like the next big thing, and then kind of
gone
died again.
again. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
remember. I remember. Like in 2005, I spent about 5 months at Disney, turning the Beauty and the Beast into a stereo thing,
Huh.
and there was no way to automate it back then, so we were all in on the old program called Shake at the time, and we were
Right.
and we were just every single frame we were just converting it. What a nightmare! That was a
Yeah,
pain,
yeah. I can imagine.
but a
So
learning
it,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's always great to sort of learn a new technology and stuff, isn't it? But one of the things that I was keen to know more about in your career, Craig, is that not only did you work, building stuff, but you're also a performer as well. Because
Yeah.
I always think like with the VFX crews, we kind of go, oh, he or she is a stop motion animator, or he or she is a creature designer, but often these people are adding, in stop motion, you're adding performance, right? I mean, Phil
Yeah,
Tippett's
completely.
work and Ray
Oh,
Harryhausen's work
completely.
without their performative kind of stance on it, it wouldn't be as wonderful as it is. And with your work working with kind of creature stuff, you worked as a puppeteer as well.
Yeah, yeah. I was fortunate. I got to do a lot of puppets. Like I was the mouth for the Slimer ghost in the original Ghostbusters, and
The
and
best
and
one,
I,
yeah.
and I think my pinnacle though was playing the Raptor puppets in the original Jurassic Park.
Oh wow, yeah.
That was a lot of those shots were just me with a hand puppet
Huh.
in Jurassic Park, and I used Kermit the Frog's voice. So
Yeah.
imagine being on the set with the Raptor going, "Hey everybody, we're the Raptors, and we're coming into the kitchen now."
It probably
And
helped the kids, to be honest, like not to be so
yeah,
scared.
yeah. You know what? It was funny. The kids were they were like they thought the puppets were cool, but the adults they thought, "Oh, these are don't want to look at it." It was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was I think what my favorite goofy puppeteering story. I was working on this movie called The Stuff for
Yeah.
Larry One, and it was about this white blobby stuff they found, and
Oh
they turned
yeah,
it in. They tried to
yeah,
turn
yeah,
it
yeah.
into
I
and
remember that.
and but anyway, what we did was we would empty like a case of Barbasol shaving cream into garbage bags, and then I would kneel on my hands and knees, and they would cover me with a blanket, and they would cover that with Barbasol shaving cream. And then the director, Larry Cohen, he would say, "Okay, I want you to undulate menacingly." I'm like, what?
I'll give it a shot. Yeah.
Is this scary? It's ridiculous. And so I played this blob character in like multiple shots and
Huh.
undulate menacingly.
I'm gonna have
That's
to see. I think I was aware of that film. Maybe I'd never saw it, but that was in my video store. I remember where I used to rent videos. I was
oh
never a
yeah,
kind of horror guy, so
way
yeah, I
back
never
in
I
the
never
day.
rented it. I don't think. Is the reason you ended up puppeteering in some of these shows like Ghostbusters and Jurassic Park because you're involved in the creation of the beasts
Yeah.
themselves, so you have an intimate knowledge of it.
Yeah, a lot of that. I found out that the guys that were doing the mechanics for the puppeteers were most of the time the guys who ended up going to set to puppeteer them.
Mm,
And not most of the time wasn't because they were good puppeteers, although there were some great puppeteers out of there.
mm.
Most of the time was just because they were the mechanics, and if something broke, they would be there on set to fix it. Uh,
Mm.
but for me, it all after a while, it all became about the performance of the puppet. Like, how can I build a puppet that performs for you and that doesn't fight your performance and does and that was the fun part, and like the insert Raptor head for Jurassic Park. That was actually I built a Steadicam rig to hold that head up. The head was like 70 pounds, and so I built a backpack and I built a Steadicam rig that came off my shoulder, and it would just sit there in space, and I just move my arm up there and move it around. Oh, and I put power steering for the head turn, so I had it on a on a
Wow.
on a big one of those big giant Seiko airplane servos, and and um, and because like you can I was turning the head with my hand. You can turn pretty far to the inwards, but turning outwards, you can't turn the head very far. So
Yeah.
I would just like do it, and then the head would go. It would just like whip around for me, and I would get
Like it
some.
was looking at something, yeah.
Yeah,
So what
yeah,
shots would we have seen that in? Is I always think that the famous shot, of course, is when it appears in that kind of porthole window
yeah,
and the
that's one of
nostrils.
those. Yeah,
Yeah, the breath
yeah.
blasts
I mean,
onto the
I'll tell
window.
you the story behind that one because there is that's I think that's my favorite shot of all time. I think, or one of my favorite shots was we were on set, and I was the puppeteer, and or operating the jaw on like these two one-arm banded things for redundancy
Mm.
was Crash McQuarrie, one of the designers, and also a good puppeteer, and a guy named Chris was puppeteering the eye on remote.
Mm.
And I said to them, "Hey, remember that scene in Alien in the end of Alien, where Sigourney Weaver's trying to escape with Jonesy the cat, and the alien shows up, and she drops the cat, and there's this really great shot from behind Jonesy the cat of the alien looking down at the cat, and he turns his head, and that
Yeah.
moment
Hmm.
when he did that, to me, when I saw that in the theater, I went, oh my, that's told me that the alien had some kind of sentency. It was problem solving. It was trying to do stuff, and it really stuck
Yeah.
with me. And so I told the guys, "Hey guys, let's try that bit where like an alien where we tilt the head, right?" And they said, "Oh yeah, let's give it a shot." Nobody heard this. It was just us, you know. Everybody else was on the inside of the kitchen with the cameras and stuff. And so I do it and I tilt the head, and someone yells out, "You're tilting the head." And then Steven Spielberg screams out, "It's like Alien. I love it."
Oh, brilliant.
Totally got it. Just that was like one of the best moments. So
Great.
so, so that
Perfect.
that was really cool.
It's great to have that kind of symbiosis with a director who kind of understands what you're trying to achieve. Did you have much rehearsal time on that show?
Oh my gosh, it was not so much with the actual puppets, but with everything else but the actual puppets. We like one of the things we did, we took one of the stages long before we shot the movie. We took one of the stages at Universal, and with cardboard and some kitchen stuff, they made a fake kitchen set,
Mm.
and then we came in there with life-size cardboard cutouts of the Raptors, and we shot like animatics and that stuff that went along with like Phil Tippett's animatics and stuff like that. And so we shot that, and we kind of broke it down like our can our full puppet do this? Can the insert puppet do this? And we just rehearsed the heck out of those things, but not really with the puppets themselves.
Yeah, I guess they're frantically building those, and
Yeah,
yeah.
we were it was quite the feat getting those, and then just the logistics of the T-Rex were insane too, because
Mm.
we had to, like, for instance, at Stan's shop, we had to excavate the floor and sink pilings 20 feet down for the motion base, so it wouldn't, crack the floor. And then we had to raise the ceiling up of the shop to hold the
Wow.
dinosaur. Yeah. And then they put it on the back of a flatbed at about 4 o'clock in the morning to drive it over to the studio, to Warner Brothers.
Mm.
And I think they went down Van Owen Boulevard, but what they had to do is they had to stop at every intersection, and the DWP had to disconnect the power lines, and they would drive through, and then they would disconnect, and they did that all the way across the valley. And you would not believe how fast those guys were. Man,
Really?
they got this down to a science, like disconnect, gone, go, connect, next
Next
one.
one.
And they
Wow.
it didn't take more than maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to get across the valley.
Crazy.
And it was just,
Crazy.
yeah, it is.
You can kind of see why the digital revolution was kind of harnessed and embraced by Spielberg and Lucas, because some of the stuff, the crews had to go to achieve this stuff. I mean, that's
Oh
crazy, isn't
yeah,
it? Just
yeah,
digging down and building up and transporting it across town. And I wonder if
yeah.
anybody saw that, like coming back from a bar, walking down the road, and
Yeah,
there's this.
yeah, I wondered. Yeah, I always wondered. Yeah, because it did go by this like really famous Irish pub,
uh,
and they were probably just closing.
Spilling out onto the sidewalk. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
When you were
yeah,
doing the Raptors, though, I guess you were I mean, it's in the movie, isn't it, that dinosaurs are related to, or birds are related to dinosaurs. So you sort
yeah.
of were you asked to include bird-like qualities in there? Because then you have to
That
come up
was
with like a repeatable physical language, don't you?
yeah. That was all that Steven said, was that he said he wants bird-like motion, right?
Mm.
And so I had two parrots. I had a Amazon green cheek and a African gray, and my secondary puppeteer Jeff, he had a whole like flock of parrots and cockatoos and stuff. And so we just basically based it off of what we watch with our parrots every day. And one of the then and that actually comes into play with that window shot, the portal, because my bird, he would focus on one eye, like, oh, what's, and then he would like look at it then, And so a lot of that, all of it was, yeah, that was all we were given, bird-like motion.
Yeah, but then
And
your performance informs the digital animation work that is to follow. So were
yeah.
there, I know that of course the ILM guys were on set looking at stuff, but did you have direct interaction with the sort of the digital artists, if you like?
Well, Phil was there all the time, and
Yeah.
so he was going back and forth. But the really, for me, I want to really give the big kudos and the big credits to a woman named Janet Healy.
Mm.
Janet Healy was like the line producer. She was like Spielberg's line producer on a number of movies, and then she went on to executive produce a bunch of animation movies like Dinosaur that I worked on Dinosaur
Oh
for
yeah.
years, and then she did a lot of DreamWorks movie. But Janet ended up becoming our liaison up at ILM, and so like we'd take like a big piece of skin of Raptor, and then like on the first set we'd be like give it a whole base, and then the next section we give it the base plus the next shading coat, and then the highlights, and so they would kind of have like a build by the paint by the numbers example of what we were doing, and they
Right.
got lots of photographs and I was the guy who kind of like helped provide those to Janet so that Janet could disperse those. But I really give credit to her for keeping ILM's look consistent
Yeah.
and keeping it in line with ours. And the only time that it really wasn't consistent was with the Gallimimus, because we didn't make any physical
Yeah.
Gallimimus.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
and so, and I
Yeah.
think you can tell. No,
Yeah. There is a different quality to them in a way, isn't there? There is. Yeah. There
yeah.
definitely
Well,
is.
well, the thing that like a lot of colorists have pointed out to me on those shots were that it just where the gray densities need to be adjusted, and it would be fine.
Right.
And
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway, then not being a colorist, I'm going, yeah, okay.
Okay. You took their word for it. That wasn't the first time you'd worked for Spielberg, though, was it?
Gosh,
Or
what
was
was
it? Did you work on ET?
no, that was the first time I worked for him, and then in the middle, okay, so in the middle of shooting Jurassic Park, one day I'm sitting there on the kitchen set
Mm.
and waiting to shoot, and this lawyer lady looking person, very very businesslike, comes walking in, and she starts talking to Steven, and they're both like looking at me. And I like, well, what did I do? Like, did I break an NDA or something? And the next thing I know, she's there, and her name was Barbara, and she says,
Mm.
can you come with me?" It was great because Steven really liked my puppeteering and stuff on set, and she come with me, and I walk over with her to the ambulance studios, and in the back is this giant crate that looks just like the crate that the Lost Ark of the Covenant is in. And there's a reason for it, because it was made by the same guy and company.
Oh, really?
And he hands me a screw gun. He says, like, unscrew this, and I undo it. And she won't tell me what it is, right? And I open it up, and it's E.T. And he says, his finger light is burned out, and we're shooting a commercial in 2 weeks, and we need to replace it. Can you think you could fix it? And I went, I'll take a look. And so I took E.T. home, and I unpeel his finger, and I find out that it's just a very simple brake light from like a 1970s Chevy car, And so I go down to the automotive store, and for like $5, I get two of them, and come back, and I replace it, and I put the skin back on the finger, and it's already split perfectly. So there's not much you have to do. It literally took more time to go to the store to buy the light bulb than it did to fix it. And I come back the next day, and I give it to her, and she goes, "How much do you want?" And I'm going like, and I wasn't, I was already being paid to be on set and all that stuff. I thought it was just part of the deal.
Yeah.
And so I was totally struck. I'm like, $40? and she flipped out. She's like, "What? What do you want? You want us to read us play, or do you want stock options? What do you want?" And I'm like, and then I described, I told her what I just told you, how it was done. And she
Yeah.
said, "Oh, wow, okay." And then she said, "The last person who did this for us charged us $15,000. And
Wow.
then she said, "What are you doing in 2 weeks?" And I said, puppeteering ET? And that led to like this 20-year long stint with maintaining and taking care of ET, and we got to
Wow.
go to England and shoot a commercial there. We went to England to shoot a commercial for Universal Osaka,
Right, right,
and we were at this place called the Black Swan Studio.
right.
Um,
Don't know where that is. No, not
yeah,
heard of that.
it's near Piccadilly area.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But I mean, this is what, 10 or so years, 13 years after ET. Oh, hang on, ET was
yeah,
84.
that's
So yeah,
about
about 10
10 years.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So was he in pretty good condition otherwise?
Oh no, no, he was falling apart,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so I was constantly replacing servos and giving him new paint jobs. And there's actually a good story with the paint job there.
Yeah.
Um, I would, I had this house, and I had a garage with a pretty crappy door. It had like a $25 lock on it. Not a garage that you want to keep like, a $750,000 prop, puppet
Yeah,
in.
right.
Oh, and the other thing, we were always told to refer to ET as a living entity. We were never we never referred to him as a it or a puppet or a prop. It
Mm,
was always ET, and I was
mm.
ET's doctor, and Barbara was ET's mom, and that was kind of how the whole code thing went down. But anyway, I'm in my garage, and I don't want people to see what I'm got in my garage, and I'm giving ET a whole new paint job. So I'm having him up on that big box. He's all in this T pose, and I have my airbrush out, and it's got that usual really toxic mixture of stuff we used back in the day, or the rubber cement with the hexane, the acetone, and
Mm.
trichloroethylene, and the universal pigments and crap. And of course, I'm in my little white jumpsuit and my mask, everything being safe, and I'm spraying him. My door is kind of like 3/4 closed, so I can get a little ventilation. And the next thing I know, there's a knock on my door. It's like, open up, it's the police. And I go, okay. And I open up my door, and there's two policemen with their guns drawn on me.
No
And
way.
and the one guy, the one cop, the one policeman, he goes, is that ET? And they go, yeah. And they go, what had happened is the neighbors across the street had been smelling the fumes, and they thought I was operating a crack lab. So they called the cops.
Wow, that couldn't have been further from the truth. Expecting a
Yeah,
crack lab and seeing ET.
and
Gosh.
so long story short, one of the policemen went home and got his kids and came back, and we had pictures taken and stuff. But
Oh, nice, nice.
that
And
was
then you
one.
bought a better lock after that, did you, for the
Yeah,
garage door as well? Yeah.
yeah. Fortunately, yeah, we that paint job lasted a long time, and
So there was only one ET remaining because there were sort of multiple different ones, wasn't there?
there
There was
was
one
yeah.
that
So
a
we
guy
had
was in, and yeah,
yeah
or
we
kid
had
was
we
in.
had
Yeah.
a we and up until then we had a puppet, and then we had a
Hmm.
suit that had this wonderful little person named Margarita who wore it,
Hmm.
and it was very, very painful. And then we had a set of insert arms that were articulated and had the light on it on a
Uh-huh.
rheostat thing,
Yeah.
and I. I went to New York a week after 9/11 to shoot a Wendy's commercial for ET, and we only needed the arm, but we brought the whole body and everything, right? And the arm is kept in a rifle case. And the rifle case rolls off the luggage thing in New York's airport, and I get to it. It's surrounded by 6 policemen, and they go, you got a rifle in there? And I go, and like an idiot, nope, I got an arm in there. Not any better. And they,
Yeah. No. Yeah.
and but there's a Polaroid of ET's arm on the outside of the box because for
Mm.
international reasons, and they show, oh, ET, okay, and they let me go. But
I'm sure they've
anyways,
seen stranger things come through there.
oh,
I remember
I'm
there was a commercial just a couple of years ago, wasn't there? Didn't it have Henry Thomas in it as well? That was for the UK.
oh, that one, yeah, I think that was a CG ET.
I think it probably was,
So
wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
I would imagine. Yeah, you just get to a certain point where the puppet is, or the robotic
yeah,
puppet
it
is
was
not.
about 6-7 years ago. They kind of
Yeah,
retired the puppet, and
yeah. But you got to be E.T.'s carer for a long time then.
Yeah, it was really fun, and like I said, one of the big highlights was going to England and puppeteering, and all the puppeteers they hired were from Henson's, and Nick, who was the guy who did the effects and stuff for like Farscape and those shows back, and then Nick Dudman, or no, they were all of his people, and it was such an incredibly different experience than working with American crews, because the British, these guys, they were just there having fun like me. We were like having maximum fun while creating a maximum performance, right? And in the U.S., there are a lot of people just like, oh, really serious.
Oh, really? You sort of expect it to be the other way round.
Yeah,
In a way.
I
Yeah.
go to England, and like all these guys are like, hey man, let's puppeteer ET, and they did a great performance, and they were fun to hang out with. They wanted me to go to the pub later, but I couldn't. Would have loved it.
Always thinking about the pub, us Brits.
That would have
Yeah,
been
yeah.
great. Yeah, that's something on my bucket list. And
Go to a proper
go to
British
a
pub.
British
Yeah.
pub with some England guy. Yeah, I'm there.
The,
So
the the trick is knowing when to leave. That's the thing.
that's what I did.
Make your exit. Yeah. You said you worked on Star Trek: The Voyage Home as well,
Yeah,
because that was Leonard Nimoy that directed that,
it
wasn't
certainly
it?
was.
Did you have direct kind of interactions with Leonard?
Yeah, he came in the shop multiple times to inspect the the heads and stuff, and his daughter also designed one of our heads, because she was like an art design at the
Right.
time, and so she designed this thing to, it kind of looked like a welding mask alien with a mohawk head thing on it.
Mm.
But yeah, he was there, and he was really nice, and we had uh, and Mark Leonard was on the show, and
Mm.
then playing Spock's father, Sarek, and they sent some. Richard Snell went to do the live cast of their ears, and he came in and he did live cast of their ears so we could do the Vulcan ears, and they came back, and we'd already agreed that one guy was going to do Spock's ears, and I was going to do Sarek's ears, Spock's father's ears, and so. And the ears weren't labeled, and I naturally just took the older pair of ears, which I thought, the older ones, and I sculpted them, and I come back and I found out I had sculpted Spock's ears. But here's the cool thing about the neat thing about that movie was, this is the first time, and this is all due to Richard Snell, by the way. We created seamless Spock ear molds. So there were seamless silicone with these two pieces of plaster that would you'd put them in, and it would wedge the silicone against the ear to get a good nice cut line, and so that was the first movie that you won't see any seam lines on Spock's
Ah.
ears, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a nice little one to have on the resume, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of those movies where we came in, and the first day, Star Trek is this long-running franchise. It's super popular. It's guaranteed it's probably going to make its money back without anything. The first day we show up, we're doing 16 over-the-head masks. We're doing 25 sets of Vulcan ears. We're doing 12 sets of appliance makeups, and on and on and on. And then by the end of the first week, they had whittled it down. Okay, you're doing 4 slip masks. You're doing 2 Vulcans. You're doing like a couple of appliances, and which was okay, but it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you had your work cut out. um, I looked through your films, like, and there's so many great films that you worked on. Like Interview with a Vampire, I noticed
Oh
that you
yeah,
did
yeah,
some
yeah,
motion
man.
capture on that. Was that in the that would have been digital domain, wouldn't it?
It certainly was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was we had we had a 6 camera system from a company called Bechtel, and they gave it to us to use, and so basically I created the first permanent motion capture stage
Hmm.
there. But most of the performance capture we did on that show was actually optical encoder and stuff, and so like we did this huge shot of the vampire Lestat biting this woman on the neck on the back in the day on the dike outside the Mississippi River,
Mm.
and this is we were abusing CG at this point because it was our new toy, right? And so we could have the thing was like Tom Cruise is going to walk up to this woman, bite her in the neck, and she's going to bleed, right? Okay, we would always do that with some Caro syrup, red food coloring, some tubing, and a
Yeah.
little syringe, and we'd blend it, and boom, $12 later we got an effect. Not this time. No, no. We got digital toys to play with. So I took a Lumicrane and I put optical encoders on a Lumicrane so we could record all of its motion, including the bend in the crane itself, because it's a 30-foot long crane.
Mm.
And we recorded we recorded the motion onto a Cooper system, the Cooper motion control system back in those days. And then so the whole camera was motion controlled. We brought that back. And then I took 2 picture frames and I stretched cheesecloth across them, and then I filmed we filmed dripping India ink on those cheesecloth and watching the India ink spread. We did like 3 of those plates, and then we gave them to a guy who was an expert in this program called Elastic Reality, which is how he used to do all of those animal morphing things and Babylon
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
things. And he took those ink plates and he hand positioned them and morphed them over the lady's plate and tracked them with our tracking, and created the blood spread that way. So, we did something that $12, then, $150,000 later, we did it. That
Wow.
was,
Yeah. But what was your leap into that digital domain, if you like? Because up until then
oh,
you were working as sort of creature crew on a lot of things
yeah,
and
yeah,
creature effects.
that's funny because no one ever asked me how that came about. You're the first.
Mm.
So, we're working at Stan's. We're at Jurassic Park. Um, I had an old Amiga computer at home, and I was working on 3D and stuff on my own and having fun. And just for giggles, one day I did a flying logo for Stan. It was like kind of like the Paramount logo, where I had Stan's logo come up from behind a Paramount mountain and come over a lake, and ta-da! And because of that, Stan thought I knew everything that there was to know about 3D graphics.
Right. On the
So
Amiga,
far
at
from the
least. Yeah.
truth. And so he said, and near at the end of Jurassic Park, he said he wants to create characters in CG too. He wants to do full body characters. He wants to create these full things. And so he said, go out and do it, Craig. And so I went out and I spent about $2.5 million of Stan's money. And I got 6 SGI computers. 2 of them were like the size of a refrigerator, called the VGX Power Series or something like that. And then a couple of smaller ones, and we actually built a room out in Stan's studio so that was air conditioned and climate controlled, and a clean room for the computers that was air conditioned, and we got a couple of copies of the software called Softimage at the time, which is what they did
Yeah.
Jurassic Park in.
Hmm.
And we started doing some stuff, and then like 2 weeks later, we get everything kind of going together, and next thing you know, um, Scott Ross from ILM and James Cameron come in, and Stan says, oh, we're making a company. It's called Digital Domain, and Craig, you're its first employee. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay. I mean, if you want to be. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. And so we moved the whole computer system down to Venice, there in Santa Monica area, to this famous advertising company called Chiat Day. We took over their old building, and they were famous for creating the NutraSweet gumball ad that propelled NutraSweet to fame back in the day.
Right.
But so we did that, and we created a studio, and like the very first thing we did was a logo for Tim Burton, and it was an exact kind of a it was a play off of the Beatles like Helter Skelter album with that hand coming up like that. And so it was a logo like that, and then we made it for him, and it never got used. And then the next thing we came up was True Lies, yeah. And
Oh
so
yeah.
so I just it's kind of cool because I'm listed as one of the 8 co-founders of Digital Domain now,
Cool.
and that's kind of a nice honor, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's how it all came about. Stan asked me to put together some computers. We did it, and then that turned into Digital Domain overnight.
Yeah,
So
wow. And then I see that you worked on a bunch of animated movies later on in the sort of
yeah.
2000s. I mean, in this house, in this very house, Tangled and Rise of the Guardians are two huge movies. I have three girls, and
Ah,
they all
yeah.
love those movies. So what does
I
a layout artist, a final layout artist, and a
Okay,
character
so
TD do?
well, it depends on whether you're working at what if you're working at. It's kind of a different job at Pixar, or DreamWorks, or Disney. But at DreamWorks, where I was working, what the final layout artists do is they're kind of like what they call the keepers of the shot. So the first thing they do is they take all of the assets that everybody's made, and they put that in Maya, and they create the world. So like they take all of the props and the sets that the model makers made. They take all of the rough animation that the rough layout artists have made, and we put that all into a set, along with like the substitution geometry, and then we also do like a lot of set dressing, right? And
Mm-mm.
then we all of those assets go into this system, so called MAUI, called the Maya Animation User Interface, which allows um, people to work on the same shot on different things at the same time. So an animator can be animating one character on the same shot while someone else is working on another character, and they don't clobber each other's work. So we
Mm.
set up that system. And so then after we get all that set up, then we became set dressers, and then ultimately we were the camera operators. And so they would animate all this stuff, and then we would come back in and do the final camera animations and tweak them. So and that was so much fun, getting to do camera work,
Mm.
especially when like on Rise of the Guardians, our executive producer was Del Toro, was Guillermo, and
Yeah.
and and he was there all the time, and that was so much fun working with him. And so you'd be doing, and so it's fun because I go watch those movies like Rise of the Guardians and How to Train Your Dragon 2,
We
Turbo,
love that also. Yeah.
um those 3 movies. I watch them and I see my camera work, right. I did tons at Disney. I was a character rigger and a simulation specialist, and so I just lots and lots of character rigging. Of course, you see your characters moving around, but you don't see your skeletons, hopefully. Um, but then when you go do final layout and you're doing camera, and you go, that's my camera. I did that camera. But
Yeah.
it was so more creative and rewarding. I like doing like like doing character rigging is like 80% technical and 20% creative, in my opinion. And doing final layout is like the opposite. It's like 80% creative and 20% technical. And
Mm.
I liked the creative part of that. I like being able to like fly cameras, and set dressing was kind of fun. Like when you're sitting there in the middle of the day placing pieces of straw in a hanger for Toothless, you know, and you
That's
go,
very
no
cool.
one's going to see this piece of straw, I hope, or
Yeah,
notice it.
yeah, but it's
Um,
those things that we don't sort of consciously have an awareness of. But if they're not there, then we notice, right?
yeah, yeah. And one of the fun things about the Rise of the Guardians is Del Toro. He owns this car from an old '70s movie called The Car,
Oh yeah.
and it's this giant, like weird, like monster Cadillac type of car that went
Mm.
around killing people, and he parked it in the front of DreamWorks every day. And I think I was the only person old enough to actually recognize what it was. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's the car!" You know? and and then the other cool thing that Del Toro did when he was there was every Wednesday, DreamWorks has free lunch. They have a giant cafeteria, all kinds of great food and tables. And every Wednesday, Del Toro would have lunch out in the cafeteria. He would invite people to sit at his table and pitch their story ideas, and he would offer critiques and
Huh.
stuff. And that was just, even just sitting at the table nearby and listening to all that was just so incredible. A lot
That's
of
very
fun.
cool. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
just one of those incredibly creative minds, isn't he? And he lives and breathes
Oh
movie
yeah.
making. Yeah, yeah.
I was lucky enough. I'm an instructor, a professor at the New York Film Academy here in Burbank, and during COVID, uh, um, we were all teaching on Zoom, of course, and stuff. But one of my instructors, I was the chair of the department. One of my instructors, a guy named Tony Candelara, he was up in Portland, Oregon during the thing working on Pinocchio for Del Toro, and and so he's having his class on Zoom for his stop motion class. And next thing you know, Del Toro comes up and he talks to the students on Zoom for like an hour.
Awesome.
That was
That's great.
what an amazing opportunity for those students that they got.
Yeah,
And
that's what
yeah,
I've always liked about him as well. It always feels like he wants to give back as well. You know, he wants to
yeah.
feed into the machine with the next generation and everything else. Yeah.
And he was like working with Spielberg and Ron Howard and him. They're like they're like working with like the biggest fans of the movies too. Like they're like working with your best 12-year-old friend, and everybody kind of gets the same jokes, and everybody wants the same. Everybody has the same kind of goal to make something cool
Yeah,
and
yeah.
something. But yeah, anyway, yeah.
That's it. That's great to be working for a director who's like, as big a nerd as we are, as the
Yeah,
audience is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was funny. We were like the how far it goes. I was doing previs for a company called The Third Floor, and I was working on a remake of the
Total Recall.
Total Recall, yeah. And I forget the name of the director. He was the guy who directed all the Underworld movies.
Yeah.
Wonderful man. And
His name,
yes,
Len Wiseman. Len
yeah, Len
Wiseman.
Wiseman. Yeah, wonderful man. And so we were in his like studio doing all of the previs, and now I'm going to forget why I'm bringing this up, but oh, so we would be talking like the different chase scenes as to do, and all of a sudden like uh we would say, hey, what if the guy swings across and he does like that, he jumps across the building, crashes through the door like in the Born Identity, and everybody gets it, right? Oh yeah, that shot in the Born Identity. So we did it. And Len's like, yeah, let's do that, and it's just that everybody is a fan and we all speak the same grammar was pretty cool.
Yeah, shared
And
movie language, isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
and everybody gets excited about like, yeah, that shot? Yeah, let's do that. And so, yeah. Anyways,
So are you
yeah.
still working now, or are you you still working on movies now, or have you finished
Not
doing that?
very often. Right now I will do occasional consulting for movies and stuff, but I'm pretty much retired from that stuff. But I am a full-time instructor at the New York Film Academy. I'm the creative director of the 3D animation and visual effects department. I'm also the artist in residence there, and so like right now I'm doing a project between the acting department and the animation department. We're doing a performance capture project where we're doing a Marvel team up. And so we're taking some old anime, we're taking like the Black Widow and the Hulk and Rocket the Raccoon and Groot, and we're having all of the actors do motion capture, and then all of my students are doing the performance. I mean, doing the motion capture post processing and putting the scenes together, and so it's like a regular little production there. But
Cool.
we're just it's fun because yeah, I can not dealing with production pressures anymore, and it's such a different beast now than it was back in the day. So,
Mm, mm. Yeah,
anyways,
in what way? Just the tools are more accessible. You've
yeah.
got more flexibility.
more flexibility. There's like the last time I was on a movie set, it felt way more tense than the back in the 80s. I felt like back in the 80s, I guess maybe we were like on these big union shoots and everybody was more relaxed and stuff like that. But the last couple of shoots I were on, it just seemed like everybody was on pins and needles on the set. They've just
What do you
like
put that down to?
I think I don't know. It could have just been that particular production, and also, I don't work in television very often, and that was a television production. It was an old production of ABC's Foster's Friends, and like what? Yeah, yeah. I did an army of ants crawling down a windowsill and crawling over some fruit under a guy's bed, and
Right.
but man, it was, the whole crew was like on pins and needles and like really like, but the camera guys, the camera operators, and the focus pull, they were like, hey, yeah, let's do this. It was like night and day difference, and
Mm,
so it could just have been productions like that, and maybe
mm.
working in television has a little more time pressure involved because they're shorter,
Yeah.
quicker
Yeah.
turnaround.
Maybe. Maybe.
So
In all of the years that you worked on all of these movies, did you ever come away with like a memento? Do you have anything on a shelf in your house that sort of indicates some of your work, like whether like I don't know if it's an award or a prop or anything like that?
it's covered with dust. It's embarrassing. This is my favorite thing. Okay.
Uh-huh. That's the Intergalactic Award for Best Puppeteer.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Steven Spielberg gave this to me for puppeteering E.T.
No way. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And it's like, there's only one of these. There's like 4,000 plus Oscars. There's only one of these. So
That's
yeah,
yeah,
that
that's a
was
thing
that
to
was
have.
really cool and was a great acknowledgement. And we had Spielberg had a really bad taste in his mouth with puppeteers due to some previous experiences, most notably with a movie called Hook.
Yeah.
And it was a disaster. The puppets were breaking and stuff from what I was told,
Mm,
and so he approached us to do Jurassic Park. He was very I think he was kind of nervous, I think, about working with and the Jaws, Bruce the shark, he was a total disaster.
yeah,
and
of course.
and 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 the close encounter aliens. Oh, yeah, yeah. You didn't hear Carlo Rambaldi talk about them very often,
No,
but
no.
uh, um, but anyway, as I break politically sensitive subjects, and but
They're well known. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it is ancient history. So I know that Stephen had a certain apprehension about working with puppets, but we had, Stan's crew. We had been through fire, and we built puppets that would not break. And like
Mm,
Frank said, like we had redundant systems. Like the Raptor had, instead of just one jaw hinge, you had two pulleys, and in case one
mm,
broke, we could still use it. And
hmm.
and that was from working on movies with James Cameron, because you didn't want stuff to break on gym sets. That was bad.
Yeah. You do not want Jim in your face,
It happened
giving you
enough
a telling
times.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, once you see
and
it happen to somebody else, it kind of motivates you in a way to make sure it doesn't happen to you, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so so we had done that, and my the second mechanic guy in the shop, that my assistant guy Jeff, he liked to say we make bulletproof puppets. and, and to prove it, one time he took the neck mechanism for the Raptor out in the desert and shot it with a Glock. I don't know why, but he came back and
Well,
look, see,
well,
bulletproof.
he had
Yeah, you
something to
proved your
prove.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, proved the point.
But I see
So,
like you worked on like Cocoon and Predator as well. I mean, they were
oh yeah,
two sort
yeah.
of big creature movies as well in many ways. I
Yeah,
mean,
Cocoon was like it was kind of like a little side project. I wasn't supposed to be working on it. I was working for
mm,
a guy named Robert Short, who
Mm.
was, I think his biggest claim to fame was making the ET's heart light out of a gourd or something like that. But I was working for Robert, creating uh, the Olympic alien for the closing ceremonies of the 1984 Olympics. And
Ah, in LA, yeah.
there's this big giant guy, right? Alien was designed by an alien designed by the legendary Ron Cobb, which was great getting
Oh,
to
was it?
meet
Yeah. Mm.
and work with Ron, in Childhood Hero. And but anyway, at the same time, we were in the shop working on. Oh, the other thing that Robert Short did was Beetlejuice. Sorry, um,
Mm.
but meanwhile, in the same shop, they're working on Cocoon, and I was like had a lot of downtime, and so they asked me, can you help make the molds for the cocoons? And so I helped lay up the fiberglass because they were the big, huge fiberglass molds. And
Mm.
then I ended up sculpting all the barnacle. I sculpted this big barnacle plate and cast up hundreds of barnacles and then glued them to the cocoons. And then took uh, wall foam, the spray wall foam that you spray in between walls, and we splattered the cocoons with that to kind of like build them up. And then I remember making I worked on a mold for the one of the dolphins' tongues. But yeah, that's what I did on that show.
The
Yeah.
variety of things you get to do in your line of work is incredible, isn't it? You sort of become an expert on this one thing for a short period of time and then move on to something completely different. But obviously, you're
Yeah.
carrying knowledge with you each time. But do you feel that there was a film that you worked on where you really felt like we've kind of hit the ceiling here of what we're capable of doing with
Well,
physical
I
animatronics and
mean,
puppetry?
it was definitely Jurassic Park because we broke so much new ground and stuff. But before that, my one of my all-time favorite movies I ever worked on, and we had such a great time. I was such a close-knit little family. Was Tremors.
Yeah,
Doing those worms out in the desert. That was
yeah.
like every day was like 110 degrees,
Hmm.
and we're in between these two big mountain range, Mount Whitney and Mount Lone Pine, and so the sun comes up and at like around 7 in the morning, and it goes down around 5 in the afternoon. And this was one of those rare movies, one of the only monster movies I made that we shot during the daytime.
Yeah, right.
And so, but Jurassic Park was we got Steven came in. He says, "I just I'm giving you the ultimate budget and ultimate time to make the best dinosaurs you possibly can," and that set us off to do all this stuff, and and just like the design just for the T Rex alone, that was such an evolution, uh, um, to come up with that. Like originally there was this old King Kong display ride here at Universal Studios in California. It was
Mm.
this giant inflatable King Kong. You go in your tram and you're in nighttime New York, and King Kong would like that, but he was a full size, and he was a giant latex King Kong with some mechanics in him, but they had giant Ritter fans in the bottom, so he's basically a Macy's parade float. And he was in hell, and they would pump banana scent into there, so you would smell bananas coming off his breath. And so originally we thought, okay, well maybe we'll do the T Rex as a Macy's parade float. And I was like, okay. And then the next thing that happened is like there was another tour stage show at Universal, of Steven Spielberg movie called Fievel Goes West, and
Yeah.
it was like this 2-story tall cat puppet that would come out of the ground and menace the performers, which were like full size adults in mouse costumes, and he was on a seesaw, right? And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. We can kind of get him the T Rex to move around and get up and down and stuff, maybe. But and then someone came up with the idea, hey, why don't we take a look at like construction cranes and backholes and maybe try to turn one of those into a T-Rex. And then I went to an equipment rental place here and I looked at a backhoe, and I looked at all the first like it'd be super easy to kill somebody
Yeah.
with that kind of mechanics. And the second thing was like what we had this official word, like this word here in Hollywood for when when you see a back hole, it goes like this, and then because they just kind of shake when they get done moving.
Yeah, the
We used
judder
to
kind
call
of, yeah.
that wagga wagga, wagga wagga, wagga wagga,
Yeah,
and then trying to eliminate the wagga wagga from one of these cranes or back holes looked like a living nightmare. And I was thinking like
yeah.
maybe I could use like garage door springs to put tension on them or something.
Yeah. So for
Um,
anyone who's listening and not watching, what we're talking about here is the kind of stopping an automated arm. It's like you're sort of stopping the inertia, but then there's some bounce back. We have that
yeah,
in TV industry, where we put remote cameras in dangerous places on motor racing circuits, and they'll pan and they'll wobble.
yeah,
So we have to work quite hard, or the mechanics have to work quite hard to kind of dampen that.
you have to
And
stabilize those. Yeah,
yeah, and to stabilize it. And honestly, it's got up to a very good standard now. But when we first used those remote cameras, you really saw that wagga wagga, as you say. And if you're seeing that on a dinosaur on a rig in a film,
yeah.
the illusion
They
is
look like
gone, right?
they look like they'll
Yeah.
have palsy, which later he did for a different reason. Um, but anyways, I was taking the weekend off. I'm a helicopter pilot, and they were having the International Helicopter Convention down near Disneyland. And I thought I'm just going to go down and spend the weekend looking at, cool helicopters. And so I go down there and I see a flight simulator, and here's this flight simulator, and it's moving like this 9,000-pound cockpit, just with the most amazing grace and agility. And right then I went, that's it. That's the technology we need for the T-Rex. And so I
Mm.
came back and I told Stan and I told Steven, and they said, yeah, that makes total sense. And then I called up this company in Santa Fe Springs called McFadden that makes motion bases, and they hung up on me. And then, and they're like, no, we dealt with you Hollywood types before.
Oh, really?
And so the next day, Steven Spielberg comes in and says, get me on the phone with him. And so I call him up. It was like, my boss, Steven Spielberg, wants to talk to your boss. And 10 minutes later, Steven hangs up and says, we got a deal.
Amazing.
And we worked with that company. And then we also hired a really great guy that had worked on the motion simulator rides up at Universal, a guy named Craig Bard. He'd worked on the Back to the Future, which had 28 simulators going at the same
Yeah,
time.
right. Yeah.
And
I went
and
on
when they
that
all
many
went at
years
the
ago.
same time, it caused an earthquake, so they had to stick off some, and that happened.
Wow.
But we had him, and so we did this great collaboration, yeah, with McFadden, and Craig came in, and we got some amazing industrial welders, real welders, not us fake welders,
Yeah.
and we made the T-Rex, and so that they used, and the McFadden, they had solved so many problems that we hadn't even dreamed of yet. Like when you're using those massive amounts of hydraulics, the first thing that happens is those hydraulics, they heat up and the oil expands, right? And that
Mm.
creates the hydraulics, makes them spongy. And so half the thing was like our hydraulic oil was going through these two gigantic air conditioning units to cool them down before they would go back into the T-Rex. And then they can only travel a certain number of feet through those hydraulic hoses before they start losing pressure too. So inside the T-Rex were additional ballast tanks of reservoir oil so that the oil didn't have to be pumped that far.
Mm.
And then of course, everything had to be balanced out, and there were accelerometers and inertial sensors that McFadden had come up with to control things and make things smooth, and they had come up with programming for like if you have something like on a seesaw, and maybe it's this dinosaur and his mouth opens, well, so now the weight that was here, now it's over here, right? And so that changes the weight and the momenta, what they call the
Mm.
moment. And so that has to be calculated in when the dinosaur opens its mouth. They have to always open his mouth, so we have to adjust for that.
And it's crazy
And
that, when people say Jurassic Park, people go, oh, yeah, CG dinosaurs. People don't really sort of
yeah,
acknowledge the technology that you were pushing as well on your side.
I see Jurassic Park at 7 minutes of CG dinosaurs and 14 minutes of real dinosaurs.
There you go.
Well,
There you go.
for
Real
puppet
dinosaurs, yeah.
not real dinosaurs. But
Do you
yeah.
take the opportunity to kind of look back and feel proud of what you achieved in your career?
I'm proud, and I also feel so incredibly lucky to have had this amazing career that I did, because that was my childhood dream, was to come down here and do this stuff, and everything just kind of fell into place, and I got to work on the best movies at the time, and pretty happy with the way things went.
Huge thanks to Craig there for being so generous with his time and his stories. From the Planet of the Apes makeups on the family ranch to the kitchen porthole head tilt of the Raptors to co-founding Digital Domain. What a career, and what a lovely guy to chat to. This podcast is completely independent. There is no studio behind it, no network, no sponsor making this happen. It's just me, a microphone, my laptop, and the good people who chip in to keep the lights on. If you've enjoyed this episode or any of the others, please do consider joining my Patreon community over at patreon.com/Jamie Benning. For the price of a coffee each month, you'll get my undying gratitude, early access to episodes, bonus content, and the warm glow of knowing you're directly helping me keep tracking down those stories before they're lost. Patrons are genuinely the reason this show still exists, so thank you sincerely to everybody who already supports it. If Patreon isn't your thing, the next best thing you can do is hit the follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. That could be on YouTube, it could be on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Leave a quick review or rating, make a comment maybe on the YouTube channel, and share the episode with a fellow film nerd. It helps new listeners find the show, and it costs you nothing, but it would mean a great deal to me. Have a look at my link tree. You'll find everything there, including my articles for ILM and Skywalker Sound, my early documentaries, and all the back catalogue stuff over at filmumentaries.com. So that's it from me. Thanks so much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Filmumentaries podcast.
Weirding Way Media.